Tonight, America's future hinges on the fight between candidate Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Tonight, America will decide its future. Another 4 years of the Trump administration, or is Joe Biden America's answer to a fresh start? Later on in the program, we'll find out what another 4 years of the Trump administration means for foreign policy. And, or is Joe Biden the answer? But first, Donald Trump has this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Please sit. Thank you. This is without question the latest news conference I've ever had. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it very much. And I want to thank the American people for their tremendous support. Millions and millions of people voted for us tonight. And a very sad group of people is trying to disenfranchise that group of people. And we won't stand for it. We will not stand for it. I want to thank the First Lady, my entire family, and Vice President Pence, Mrs. Pence, for being with us all through this. And we were getting ready for a big celebration. We were winning everything, and all of a sudden it was just called off. The results tonight have been phenomenal, and we are getting ready. I mean, literally, we were just all set to get outside and just celebrate something that was so beautiful, so good, such a vote, such a success. The citizens of this country have come out in record numbers. This is a record. There's never been anything like it. To support our incredible movement. We won states that we weren't expected to win. Florida, we didn't win it. We won it by a lot. And we won the great state of Ohio. We won Texas. We won Texas. We won Texas by 700,000 votes, and they don't even include it in the tabulations. It's also clear that we have won Georgia. We're up by 2.5% or 117,000 votes with only 7% left. They're never going to catch us. They can't catch us. Likewise, we've clearly won North Carolina, where we're up 1.4% or 77,000 votes with only approximately 5% left. They can't catch us. We also, if you look and you see, Arizona, we have a lot of life in that. And somebody declared that it was a victory for, and maybe it will be. I mean, that's possible. But certainly there were a lot of votes out there that we could get because we're now just coming into what they call Trump territory. I don't know what you call it, but these were friendly Trump voters. And that could be overturned. The gentleman that called it, I watched tonight, he said, well, we think it's fairly unlikely that he could catch. Well, fairly unlikely. And we don't even need it. We don't need that. That was just a state that if we would have gotten it, it would have been nice, Arizona. But there's a possibility, maybe even a good possibility. In fact, since I saw that originally, it's been changed and the numbers have substantially come down just in a small amount of votes. So we want that obviously to stay in play. But most importantly, we're winning Pennsylvania by a tremendous amount of votes. Think of this. We're up 690,000 votes in Pennsylvania, 690,000. These aren't even close. It's not like, oh, it's close. With 64% of the vote in, it's going to be almost impossible to catch. And we're coming into good Pennsylvania areas where they happen to like your president. I mean, it's like very good. So we'll probably expand that. We're winning Michigan, but I'll tell you, I looked at the numbers. I said, whoa. I said, wow, that's a lot. By almost 300,000 votes, and 65% of the vote is in. And we're winning Wisconsin, so we're winning. We don't need all of them. We need, because when you add Texas in, which wasn't added, I spoke with the really wonderful governor of Texas just a little while ago, and Greg Abbott, he said, congratulations. He called me to congratulate me on winning Texas. I mean, we won Texas. I don't think they finished quite the tabulation, but there's no way. And it was almost complete, but he congratulated me. Then he said, by the way, what's going on? I've never seen anything like this. Can I tell you what? Nobody has. So we won by 107,000 votes with 81% of the vote. That's Michigan. So when you take those three states in particular, and you take all of the others, I mean, we have so many, we had such a big night. You just take a look at all of these states that we've won tonight, and then you take a look at the kind of margins that we've won them by. And all of a sudden, it's not like we're up 12 votes and we have 60% left. We won states, and all of a sudden, I said, what happened to the election? It's off. And we have all these announcers saying, what happened? And then they said, oh, because you know what happened? They knew they couldn't win, so they said, let's go to court. And did I predict this, Newt? Did I say this? I've been saying this from the day I heard they were going to send out tens of millions of ballots. I said exactly, because either they were going to win, or if they didn't win, they'll take us to court. So Florida was a tremendous victory, 377,000. Texas, as we said. Ohio, think of this. Ohio, a tremendous state, a big state. I love Ohio. We won by 8.1%, 461,000. Think of it. Almost 500,000 votes. North Carolina, big victory with North Carolina. And so we won there. We lead by 76,000 votes with almost nothing left. And all of a sudden, everything just stopped. This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election. We did win this election. So our goal now is to ensure the integrity for the good of this nation. This is a very big moment. This is a major fraud in our nation. We want the law to be used in a proper manner. So we'll be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop. We don't want them to find any ballots at 4 o'clock in the morning and add them to the list, okay? It's a very sad moment. To me, this is a very sad moment, and we will win this, and as far as I'm concerned, we already have won it. So I just want to thank you, and I want to thank all of our support. I want to thank all of the people that worked with us, and Mr. Vice President, say a few words, please. Please.
I want to join you in thanking more than 60 million Americans who have already cast their vote for 4 more years for President Donald Trump in the White House. And while the votes continue to be counted, we're going to remain vigilant, as the President said. The right to vote has been at the center of our democracy since the founding of this nation, and we're going to protect the integrity of the vote. But I really believe with all of my heart, with the extraordinary margins, Mr. President, that you've inspired in the states that you just described, and the way that you launched this movement across the country to make America great again. I truly do believe, as you do, that we are on the road to victory and we will make America great again.
Joining us now is Ben Parks, a political student. And thank you for joining us, Ben.
You're welcome.
So this whole election that we're about to find out tonight is really quite exciting.
Oh, God.
Especially in times like this. So the first question I'm going to put to you is, what do you think, if Trump closes the gap between Biden, what does this mean for his foreign policy? If, say, we see another 4 years of Trump, what does that mean for American foreign policy?
I think it's going to be exactly the same, only it's going to get worse. Like, I'm not going to get too opinionated because this is an interview and I'm going to try and stay as balanced as possible. But Trump's policy in terms of foreign policy is, let's just say, abrasive. And I think if he stays in power, there's no reason for him to change it.
Do you think he will almost be more empowered that he's been re-elected once again? We've seen him moving the embassy to Jerusalem. Do you think he's going to make more bold moves like that?
I think it's a show of confidence in what he's done so far. So I think he will attempt that, yes.
Trump says that he will go to court to halt the vote counting. In your opinion, or in general, do you think that this is intervening and preventing democratic process in the US?
I mean, I think if there is a due reason for it, then and the recount needs to be done, then I see no reason why not. However, it's Trump, and Trump has been known for saying that he will do whatever it takes to win. So if he attempts a recount, it's with context. It's like he's trying to strong-arm his way into an electoral victory rather than accepting the vote and getting on with it.
Which is going against democratic process, going against what the people say.
Yes.
What does this mean for our partners here in the UK? I mean, the US and the UK have always enjoyed a very close relationship. In terms of trade and Brexit, what does that mean for us?
I think in terms of trade and Brexit, it means, well, firstly, it means we have a far more volatile US. Because Trump is prone to being, again, this goes back to foreign policy. Trump has always been quite volatile with his foreign policy. And what this means is, whilst it may be good for Boris Johnson to have someone who gets on with him, at least ostensibly, there is a possibility that if Boris Johnson slightly disagrees with what Trump says, Trump might throw his toys out the pram.
Which we've do in the past.
Yeah. And there's also the whole thing with China and the way the US handles China, because China is probably the most important trading power in the world at the moment, I'd say. If the US fractures its relationship with China more, then there could be a definite downgrade in what we could do with the US.
But establishing close ties with the US is, would you say, a priority for us here in the UK? As we're closing in, we're moving away from Europe and moving towards the US. Do you think that these elections will directly impact how strong of a relationship we'll be able to have with the US?
Most likely.
Say if Biden was to prevail in this election, would we see a difference in the closeness of ties?
Well, considering Biden is, I'd say, a centre-right candidate, Biden is a very moderate. I'd say if he was a UK politician, I'd say Biden would be a moderate Tory, which would mean I think Biden would have decent relations actually with Boris Johnson, and a lot more stable than Trump's.
Do you think that this is what America needs right now? A fresh start, if you will, Biden?
Well, let's consider everything that's happened over these 4 years. We've had a pandemic. we've had mass riots. We've had, and this is just 2020. I've forgotten the past years before 2020 because 2020's just been 2020. But the US has not been stable for a while. It's been very polarized. It's been very, very divided. And the Trump administration has only accelerated those divisions at a massive pace. What the Trump administration has done, it's pandered to the white conservative demographic that the Republicans have always pandered to, but they've stepped it up. And the Republican Party is, I'm not gonna, as I said, I don't want to get too political, but I'd argue that the Republican Party is far right, and it's definitely verging on being extreme. So I think a fresh start under Biden to just relax and pull back from basically becoming an extreme state is definitely needed.
We saw with the whole Black Lives Matter protests and almost riots, in fact,
Yes.
we saw that Donald Trump's reaction was quite not the sort of reaction you would expect from the president of a country that's trying to unify his people. It was very divisions and sectarianism is, as I said, increasing in America. If you were to advise the Trump administration, what would your advice be to him?
If I was a neutral, like if I was in, say, a theoretical American civil service and I was advising the Trump administration on what to do, I would say pull back. If the way to counter if I was looking at this from a Republican point of view, which I'm not looking at it from a Republican point of view personally, but if I was, what I'd say is pull back, because giving the police more powers to be more violent and sending the feds in to put protests down violently is only going to aggravate the protesters more. And this will lead to more severe repercussions, and it will lead to more violence, and it will lead to a major divide in the US that has not been seen since at least the late 60s, with the whole Black Panthers movement and the massive racial divides that were happening back then. Obviously, in 1968 there was essentially the Detroit Rebellion, and we could see that again if the Trump administration continues down the path of violent suppression that honestly we associate with authoritarian states.
Yeah, absolutely. Finally, I'd like to pose to you one question. Would you like to call the election? Would you like to sort of give a prediction? What do you personally think? We're looking at the polls. They're very tight between Biden and Trump. Would you like to call the election?
Okay, so here's what I think. I'm actually going to pull up an election map. So the current situation. Biden is leading currently in Wisconsin and Michigan, and their votes are almost completely done. It is incredibly tight in both Wisconsin and Michigan. However, it looks like Biden could have those states.
So we're looking at Biden having the upper hand almost.
Almost, because what it hinges on is Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Because in Arizona, they've got 86% of the expected votes counted, and what this is, and Arizona is actually swinging Democrat, which it hasn't in a very long time.
Mm.
And what this is leading to is Biden needs obviously a slightly less votes than Trump. And I think I saw it somewhere on the BBC. Two of three states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, and also Arizona. And at the moment, Biden is leading all three in three of those four. And their expected votes have counted above 85%. I'm not going to call it for Biden yet because this could go either way, and Trump is looking to recount.
Mm-hmm. We heard him talking about a Supreme Court case to get his way, we talked about earlier.
Yes, strong arm the Supreme Court into forcing his way into power, basically.
Ben Parks, thank you very much for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
Some late headlines coming in. Donald Trump has accused his opposition of what he called fraud and says that he's willing to go to the Supreme Court in order to win this election. Let's just take a look at the map for you currently. You can see it on the screen. The electoral votes are still the same. Joe Biden slightly in the lead at 50.1% of the vote, while Donald Trump is slightly behind at 48.3% of the vote. Next, we'll take a look at what 4 years of Donald Trump meant.
Donald Trump has talked tough on the world stage.
North Korea best not make any more threats.
He's turned his back on allies
Oh, he's too fast.
and courted former foes.
I would certainly meet with Iran if they wanted to meet.
Early in his presidency, as scandals swirled over links between Russian agents and his associates,
I have nothing to do with Russia. Haven't made a phone call to Russia in years.
he was defiant, wooing Russia's president, Vladimir Putin.
He just said it's not Russia. I will say this, I don't see any reason why it would be.
As the Russia scandal faded, Mr. Trump honed in on a long-term focus of his ire.
China is ripping us off. You know who's getting the oil? China. What China's doing to us is horrible.
First, he wooed China's President Xi Jinping to do a deal more favourable to US businesses and farmers.
In a very loving way.
But it didn't happen, and launched a trade war.
If they charge us, we charge them the same thing.
But America's trade deficit with China is now the worst it's been in 12 years. And coronavirus, or as Donald Trump calls it,
The China virus.
appears to have sunk the relationship to new lows.
Our relationship with China was good until they did this.
Donald Trump has had an even bumpier ride with North Korea,
Do not try us.
goading Kim Jong-un into an escalating war of words,
Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself.
before first coming together for a historic summit in Singapore.
History in a handshake. The dictator and the disruptor on neutral ground and ready to deal.
And we're going to take care of a very big and very dangerous problem for the world.
Becoming the world's most powerful pen pals.
He wrote me beautiful letters, and they're great letters. We fell in love.
Then delivering the dictator a priceless PR victory. Crossing the demilitarised zone from South Korea for a historic handshake.
President Trump has just walked across the demarcation line that made him the first U.S. president to visit our country.
On Mr. Trump's watch, Israel has found favour. His administration first recognising Jerusalem as the nation's capital.
Today we officially opened the United States Embassy in Jerusalem.
And then getting the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain to sign deals with Israel. The world did already have a deal to rein in Iran's nuclear program,
Frankly, it was totally one-sided. It should have never been made. Believe me.
but that was brokered by Barack Obama and loathed by Israel.
The United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal.
That's prompted mysterious bombings in the Persian Gulf, with oil tankers attacked, a US drone shot out of the sky, Donald Trump ordering an airstrike on Iranian soil, calling it off just minutes before the bombs began to fall, and the assassination of the commander of the Revolutionary Guard.
Soleimani's hands were drenched in both American and Iranian blood.
None of this has done anything to get Tehran back to the negotiating table yet.
Let's make Iran great again.
In Syria, he's also kept the world guessing.
My attitude toward Syria and Assad has changed very much.
After first bombing the country in retaliation for a suspected chemical weapons attack,
Tonight I ordered a targeted military strike
A year and a half later, he abruptly declared ISIS had been defeated in the country.
We have won against ISIS. We've beaten them, and we've beaten them badly.
And American troops would withdraw immediately. It was a policy met with condemnation by nearly everyone. His Secretary of Defense resigned the very next day. But Donald Trump didn't care. This was him making good on his promises.
We want to bring our soldiers back home. These are the endless wars.
There are now roughly half the number of American soldiers in Syria than there were back in 2016, and IS was left without its leader.
Last night, the United States brought the world's #1 terrorist leader to justice. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead.
While Mr. Trump has brought old enemies closer, America's other allies, its NATO partners, have been given some distance, stung by complaints they don't spend enough on defence.
We're like the piggy bank that everybody's robbing.
And dodging questions about the organisation's relevance.
And I never asked once what the new NATO headquarters cost.
This image from the G7 meeting in 2018 summed up the frayed relationship that exists between the President and the USA's traditional partners.
Polite, we're reasonable, but we also will not be pushed around. And it's kind of insulting.
The encounters have ranged from overtly frosty to overly friendly.
I would say the highest level of special. Now, am I allowed to go? Am I allowed to go higher than that?
And sometimes outright vigorous.
Thank you, everybody.
He hasn't won many friends among his cohort. But Donald Trump didn't care. He stood his ground on NATO, and that's seen European countries raise their spending on defence, now meeting their 2% targets. As for Australia,
I have a lot of respect for Australia. I love Australia as a country.
After a testy first phone call with then Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull,
the President had a very cordial conversation with Prime Minister Turnbull.
We've largely flown under the radar with the Trump administration. So far under the radar, there wasn't even a US ambassador here for the first 2.5 years.
Riding in Her Majesty's Rolls Royce was something for a farm boy from Tennessee.
I love Australia, always have. Got Greg Norman's here today, a friend of ours.
Greg Norman, it seems, endures where prime ministers change.
Greg Norman is a friend of mine and a great friend of yours, I know, and I think he's going to be here tonight.
Yeah,
Beyond their shared admiration of the great white shark, Scott Morrison and Donald Trump have formed a close relationship.
We'll do a deal. We'll make a deal.
Australia's Prime Minister is only one of 2 world leaders given a state dinner during the Trump presidency.
To 100 years of mateship and to 100 more.
The other state dinner was for Emmanuel Macron. His dinner invitations, much like his foreign policy, keeps the world guessing on who's in.
I like him a lot.
Who's out.
Every once in a while we go at it just a little bit.